freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round two recap for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. And joining me to break it all down, it's Greg DuCharme. Greg, can I interest you in some carnage at Quail Hollow?
Oh, yes, you can. And you can also interest me in the first cut. I'm so glad to be back. It feels like I've been away forever. It's only been since Sunday, but it feels like an eternity. So really happy to be here, and I enjoyed watching the action at Quail today.
We missed you on Monday, so now I got to get my dose of Greg right now. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, how about I tell you who I picked now? Now would be a good time to tell
Let
you.
me guess.
Right?
Matt Wallace, Gary Woodland, Patrick Rogers.
Yeah. Keep going. There were a few more. Kramer Hickok was my sleeper. I love Scott Piercy and Rory this week, and Keith Mitchell. So I mean, it's a good week so far.
Yeah, you got your finger on the pulse. Quail Hollow, Greg. Woo, doggy. Friday had some teeth. So overall on Friday, the course played about 2 strokes over par, but the big difference was when the weather turned in the afternoon. The Friday afternoon guys, they got it. Okay, so the course in the morning played 1.3 strokes over par, 2.8 as of this moment in the afternoon. So you're talking about a shot and a difference on average. That's a huge difference from the morning to the afternoon.
Yeah, it really is. And it creates a very clear advantage of the guys that, I mean, you look at the top of the leaderboard and they're all pretty much late early draw. Now, when you get to these golf courses in an area like Charlotte or kind of more inland golf courses, more Parkland style golf courses, you typically don't see a huge differential. You'll see a big differential with an advantage in Florida. The Open Championship, of course, comes to mind. When you get along the coast and the wind starts to become a much greater factor, all of a sudden there's a big advantage between morning, afternoon, morning, when there's one afternoon that's particularly tough. So you don't always see that on a golf course like this, but we definitely did today. And when that golf course gets a little bit of wind going, look out, it gets tough.
Yeah, and the other notable thing is, our 18-hole leading score was 7 under. We're going to be at 6 under through 2 rounds. So this thing getting more difficult. There is just a ton of guys that are going to end up making the cut. Full disclosure, we are still recording this Friday afternoon. There are some guys out on the course. It is seeming like this is going to be for sure a +2 cut line, which is going to bring Bryson DeChambeau back into the mix. And essentially, Greg, everyone is going to be within 8 shots of the lead heading into the weekend.
Which is, this is exactly when you want to see that happen, right? If this tournament plays out where it gets a lot firmer and a lot faster over the weekend, which I think there's a possibility of that. I guess we're not necessarily expecting to get that same kind of wind, but I do think the golf course could play a lot more difficult over the weekend. And when that happens, if you get another advantage the way we did today, where the morning plays significantly easier than the afternoon, this is where you get guys that just make the cut on the number, jump up the leaderboard. I think of John Rahm at the BMW Championship last year. He's sitting at 6 over par, barely making, well, I guess it was a non-cut event, but he was significantly far back on the lead. And he got himself to, I want to say it was like 2 over or something through 2 rounds, and he ends up winning the event. So that kind of thing can happen like this. Now, tomorrow, you're expecting 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, gusts to 20, and it's going to be a cold start to the day, little maybe partly cloudy and breezy. And the high temperature for tomorrow is 73. So I do think that weather forecast sets up nicely for a difficult afternoon. It allows the guys that just make the cut, maybe a Bryson or somebody like that, if it stays at 2 over, to really make a move tomorrow.
Yeah, our friends over at Data Golf, they put it about, they have it at over to be a +2 cut line. I'm not that optimistic. It's going to go there. Small chance it does go to +1. Rory McIlroy with one of the rounds of the day. He went out on the morning with 6 birdies, a 5 under 66 vintage Rory at times. And then after the round, he kind of describes and leave the draw to his 3-wood.
Rick, I think that's a nice strategy for Rory McIlroy. But the big difference to me, looking at his number, one, he's gaining on the greens, and he's sitting right around 40th strokes gained putting for the week, which is a huge advantage for him. It means he's not. He's 27th for the week. I'm sorry. Yesterday he was 40th. Today he was 44th on the green. So he's 27th total. That's a big area for him to gain. And the other thing that I really like is what he's done with his approach. I mean, he's first in the field today, strokes gained approach the green. So the two areas that have given Rory the most trouble, the reasons why we've had concerns with Rory McIlroy are. No, he seems to have answered those questions. For me, with Rory, I have to wait till Sunday to see how he handles the greens. But this definitely looks more like Rory of old.
It certainly does. He looks good, and I got to watch a lot of that round, and then the metrics looks good too. So excited about Rory heading into the weekend. Phil, 18-hole leader. And under through 1 round, gives 4 of them back on Friday. So his opening rounds of 64 and it's certainly not going to be easy to go out and shoot another 64 anywhere, let alone at Quail Hollow. But I think if you would have told me that Phil's going to be on the first page of the leaderboard heading into the weekend at a place he has 10 top 10s in 16 or 17 starts, I think you'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, of course. And anytime you get around the lead and you go into a weekend feeling like you have a chance, it is inspiring, and it can bring a guy like Phil Mickelson to focus, which is the area I question with him. Can Phil focus for 72 holes? If today's the bad day, and this was the day where he kind of lost focus, and if he could put 3 good rounds together, then I think he has a chance. But I think, unfortunately, today's round is more what Phil Mickelson, unfortunately, is at this point. Yesterday's round is, look, he's really talented. He can go out and shoot 64 or 65 on any given day. That's not surprising. But over a course of 72 holes, can Phil withstand that? And it just seems like a lot of golf course for him at this point.
Yeah, and someone who doesn't think there's a lot of, I don't know how I was going to phrase that. There's no course that's a lot of golf course for Bryson DeChambeau is generally the direction I was headed in to make my segue.
I see what you're doing.
Bryson. Yeah, it was, I'll regret that one. Okay, so this one could get us in trouble because as we record this right now, he shot a 7 on Friday. He is in this moment he will play the weekend. That could possibly change, but what I've seen this week hasn't been pretty. Look at this from 2 perspectives, Greg. Bryson, as of this moment, is 2nd worst in the field in strokes gained approach. He has lost 6.5 shots on approach. He's still possibly going to make the cut. That is almost just shockingly impossible.
Yeah, I mean, that is concern. And he's 14th off the tee. Which when you have what Bryson has, he is a guy that leads the way. You almost guarantee you click Bryson's name and look at his stats. He's first off the tee. When he's 14th off the tee and 153rd approach the green, I mean he may barely make the cut. I think he will. He's going to barely make the cut at being 5th in strokes gained putting for the week for the first 2 rounds. And so he's not doing it in a very Bryson-esque way. It's a sign that the golf swing as a whole, whether it's with the driver or with his irons, it's not in very good shape. He's hit 10 total fairways, 10 of 28 fairways so far. And when you combine that, it's not necessarily a problem, but when you combine that with the guy, as you mentioned, Rick, who's lost nearly 7 strokes approaching the green, he's not in great form with his golf swing, and that's what happens to him. That's what tends to happen to him after long layoffs when he's taken a little bit of time off and he's gotten into the lab and he's starting to try to figure other new things out. It tends to take him a little bit to get back into tournament rhythm, and it doesn't look like he's there right now.
Do you also think Bryson is more susceptible to a big number than a lot of other guys? And the reason that I say that is, yeah, the reason I say that is he was fine all day long. And by the way, when he finished his round this morning, the cut line was at even par. So I hope he didn't fuel up the jet and get out of there with it coming back 2 strokes to him. But he gets to number 7, the easiest hole on the course by far. It's a par 5. It is just everybody's getting there into. They're hitting like 7 or 8 iron into this green. He makes triple there, puts 2 balls in the water. Why is it that he is more susceptible to the big number?
Well, for one, Rick, when you have that kind of club head speed, I think there's a couple of factors here. Okay, so not every big number is created equal. So let's just take that with a grain of salt. So first and foremost, when you have that kind of club head speed, controlling the club face becomes much more difficult. If you're off by a degree, that turns into a much bigger miss left and right yardage wise than it does when you have slower club head speed. So Bryson and I could have the same exact path and face numbers when it comes into impact, and his ball will end up much farther offline than my ball. And that's just the physics of it. So that just his speed alone is going to create bigger misses. The other aspect is this is a whole, he's trying to make, he's aggressive. Bryson plays an aggressive style, and that's what the data, that's what the numbers and the statistics often encourage. And when you do that, you take on that risk. And so if Bryson's not in great form, like we saw at Winged Foot, like we saw at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, then yes, he's absolutely susceptible to big numbers for the strategy, the aggressive strategy, and the high club head speed. And when he's just a little bit off, sometimes it can make him pay.
That makes sense. Bryson is going to tee it up next week at the Byron Nelson. So is Brooks Koepka back in action, Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, Dustin Johnson. This is a pretty strong field the week before a major championship down for the AT&T.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They're going to TPC Craig Ranch, so a new golf course. And the week before majors are always interesting because some guys want to get another rep in. And this one, unlike Masters, where Masters you have just a row of marquee events where if you take a week off, you're missing a really big event. This time of year we get it thins out a little bit, and you get big ones like the Wells Fargo, but the options are a little bit less. You have fewer options. So what you end up getting is the guys that want to play the week before a major play, and they're not necessarily playing for any other reason than to get themselves in their peak performance mode for the following week. So it leads, it's great for us. We end up getting a great field the week before a major.
We are going to assess this leaderboard. We're going to look at the odds via our friends over at William Hill, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. 6 under par is the lead. Greg, Matt Wallace is there. Gary Woodland is there. Patrick Rogers, followed by those names that we joked about at the top. Kramer Hickok is 1 shot back. Rory McIlroy is 4 under with Keith Mitchell, Carlos Ortiz, and Scott Piercy. Our friends over at William Hill say, Rory McIlroy, huh? He's 2 shots back. Let's make him the favorite. He is 4-1 with Matt Wallace at plus 650, Gary Woodland at plus 750, and Abraham Answer, who's lurking 3 shots back, still on the course at 11 under. What do you see when you look at the big board from William Hill?
Man, I'm left with some questions, right? Because you have the favorite, Rory McIlroy. We don't know if we can really trust him, although his history here has been fantastic. So if we continue to get the positive gains on the greens and approaching the green, then this should be Rory McIlroy's tournament to win. But that being said, that has had a tendency over the past couple of years to change on Sunday. So I'll be watching that very closely. Matt Wallace has been hitting the ball coming into this week. All kidding aside, I was very high on Matt Wallace this week just because the form has been so good and his ball striking has been fantastic, even though it's been more so with the iron play than it has been off the tee. Now, what he's doing this week is not necessarily that. He's putting a little bit better. He's gaining on the greens, which he hasn't made anything the past couple of weeks. Think back to the Valero Texas Open when he and Jordan Spieth were in the final group, and he couldn't make anything. And that's kind of been the trend. So it's nice to see him putting well, but is that going to hold up over the weekend? That turns into another big question. So the guy that I really start looking to is Victor Hovland. And Victor Hovland has proven over the past couple of weeks, and really his whole career, that when he makes the cut, when he gets on difficult golf courses, when he gets on a place that tests you off the tee the way that Quail Hollow does, he excels. And I look for, in difficult conditions over the next couple of days, I look for Victor Hovland to really accelerate up the leaderboard.
Victor Hovland, 22-1. He's at 1 under par. I think the 1 unders are definitely live. I see Corey Connors is there at -1. He's 6th in the field in strokes gained tee to green. He's been hemorrhaging strokes on the putting surface, which is not unusual, but if he can find 2 good putting rounds, I think he moves his way up the leaderboard. I'm trying to see who else William Hill is looking at and saying, oh, that's a guy like JT's 25-1. He is even par, so he's going to be, I don't want to say this. What's the real lead? Is it 4 under where Rory is?
Well, I do think you have to consider it to be 6, maybe 5. I mean, just because you have 3 guys at 6, and you have a major champion, in Gary Woodland, even though his form has been really bad. I mean, last week I was worried about him. I was worried about Gary Woodland, but he seems to be playing a little bit better now. So he figured something out. You have to consider it 6 because you have a major champion and you have 3 guys at 6 under par. But 6 stroke to make up 6 strokes over the weekend on a course like this, where it's so difficult and it gets more difficult throughout the day, I still think the even pars have a chance.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Especially
you're
JT.
Right. And, well, JT's always got a chance. He's just on another planet. Okay, cool. Well, listen, we're going to figure it out. They're going to be, if this cut stays at +2, which I believe it's almost certainly going to at this point, we're probably going to see 3 balls and split tees on Saturday because there's going to be a ton of guys out there. We're going to have to get them all in before the end of the day. So there's going to be a lot of movement on moving day. And afterwards, we will be here to break it all down. But for now, let me thank producer Jacob. He does all the hard work behind the scenes. Let me thank Greg DuCharme, who you can find on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.